really want to be able to answer questions as we do this, but let's start out here now. And we're going to talk about, while she figures this out, because I am not Facebook savvy at all. But while we look at this, we're going to talk about gut health and immunoresilience, because as we get into looking at basically everything that goes wrong in humans, the Orientals have the best saying ever. And the best saying ever is, death begins in the gut. And it absolutely does. Death begins in the gut with leaky gut syndrome. If you don't have enough hydrochloric acid, the bacteria and the viri particles go through and get into the small intestines, and this leads to other problems. So all of that starts to give us problems in the machinery, and things don't work. And as things don't work, you start adding load to the system, causing more and more and more problems. So we decided to kind of talk about gut health and immunoresilience. And I'm going to keep my little tags over here. For those on my personal page, please look up Integrated Health of Indiana, or look up Integrated Health of Indiana. We should have a live going there, and I would like to actually migrate all the people from here to there. But let's talk about hydrochloric acid, and this is your first line of defense. If you do not have enough concentrated hydrochloric acid, then what happens to you is you cannot get the body.
I found it.
Thank you. And let's mute me because
How do I make it go up?
That's not a touch screen. Here we are. Come over here. And there we are. And so you should be able to see it live. But, so, what ends up happening is, if you have low hydrochloric acid, then food particles get through, bacteria get through, viri get through, pathogens get through, all kinds of stuff. You start to get what is called leaky gut syndrome, because you're not breaking enough stuff down. And as this happens, like I said, it starts to layer in multiple issues. And so, how hard is it? To introduce ourselves, I'm Dr. Trevor Miller, and this is
Jessica.
Nurse Jessica. So, we both work in the healthcare field, and that's our calling, that's our passion. We love to help people.
Most days.
Depends on what floor she's on. So, we are discussing the hydrochloric acid, and we are discussing the body's ability to defend itself. And right now, if you don't think defending yourself and having immunoresilience is important, you could be setting yourself up for bigger problems. So, what are signs or symptoms of low hydrochloric acid?
Well, vitamin deficiencies,
And we've seen that in testing lots of people.
reflux, upset stomachs when they eat. Actually, kind of lots of things.
Yep. Actually, when you look at blood studies, lots of things that cause problems in blood, one of the first things they say is hypochlorhydria. So, let's talk about this. Do you have bloating? Do you have gas? Do you get sick easily? Does food set heavy in your stomach? Do you get an upset stomach? Are you nauseous when taking supplements? Do you have heartburn or GERD? Do you have diarrhea? Once again, I repeated gas. Food allergies, food sensitivities, nutritional deficiencies, acne, skin, because if you do not break down the bacteria in the gut, then what happens to you is that bacteria gets to go through. And what's your largest elimination organ? Your skin. And so then we start to see people getting rashes, acne, all that kind of stuff. And so, acne, hair loss in women.
I don't have hair loss.
I know you don't. I need your hair.
I know, but I did lose my eyebrows, but that's thyroid.
That's thyroid. But that's all related. When we look at that, because things, if you think of when you eat something, your stomach is a tube, and it keeps everything that's in the tube out of the bloodstream. So when you eat something, think of it like a big donut hole going all the way down and out. When you have your food traveling through there, there are certain parts that are tasked with absorbing certain vitamins. Your B vitamins, your fat-soluble vitamins, your minerals, all of these things go through the body, and they go through the intestines, and they are required to have enough acid, and this is funny, you can't have too much, and you also can't have too little. And if you do, then you don't absorb things. And so hair loss in women because of vitamin B deficiency is also seen. A lot of people will get what they call geographic tongue. And so if you look at your tongue in the mirror and you do that and you have all these cracks and crevices, that's known as geographic tongue, and that's a vitamin or a B vitamin deficiency. And so if you have hypochlorhydria, that can cause that. Last but not least, constipation. And so, just as an aside, we are the only clinic in Indiana that has a machine called a Heidelberg machine, and this is a functional test of hydrochloric acid. And why is that important? Because, why is that important? Why is a functional test important?
Well, we need, in order to treat.
Wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just watching that Kathy said, hey. Why is the Heidelberg important? Well, it's a diagnostic tool, one, to see whether you have hyper or hypo or you're good. And once you know, then you can change your diet, you can add some supplements, then you can figure it out.
But a functional test is important because you have to have a reacidification. So I am hypochlorhydric.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing these tests, actually. His took like an hour and a half. He was
I was the worst on the low end.
Become acidic, which wasn't going to happen.
So you want to see the potency of the hydrochloric acid, first off. Second off, you want to do a challenge. And lots of tests out there will say, hey, drink this sodium bicarbonate, and if you burp, you've got hydrochloric acid and you're good.
No, that's not necessarily true.
That's not a functional test. That will tell you if you have hydrochloric acid, which is great. What you want to see is if it reacidifies. And that's the key, because when we look at how it reacidifies, when you do these tests, you should see the pill, the radiographic, well, about as big as a multivitamin.
That's fair.
About as big as a multivitamin. You swallow this thing, it goes down into the stomach, and immediately...
It's attached to a string. So we attach it to the string, you swallow it, you get a baseline. So that's the most uncomfortable part, and then pulling it back up.
Yeah,
But
or
it's about the size of a large multivitamin.
Or you can untether it, but the test isn't as good when you untether it. When you untether it, it will show you transit time through the bowel.
And it might just be quick out, and you don't get the result.
So we do tether it, but when we tether this, what happens is we can see the quality of the hydrochloric acid, what the pH is, first off. Number two, we administer a sodium bicarbonate solution, and you will see basically it drops straight down, or it's supposed to, goes across, and then when you administer, it jumps up. And it goes to a basic solution of about 7 or 8. And once you are in that 7 or 8, when the time frame happens and it's set off in 3-minute times, you should reacidify within 15 to 20 minutes. And then it should just go bang and drop straight down. If we see it kind of go down like this, if it kind of slopes, we know that there's mucus in the stomach. So you might have biofilms if you've heard of these things. If that's where this immunity comes into play. So the biofilms allow the body, or not the body, but bacteria and viri to coat themselves so your immune system doesn't see them to attack them. And that's why you have to use things like biocidin or copious amounts of olive leaf, rosemary, thyme, those types of things which are antiviral, antibacterial. And so you use those to help eat away the biofilm. If you're following the conventional medicine route, you have to be really lucky and pulse dose antibiotics. And so you've got to catch the biofilm opening up and allowing the spores to almost release, and then you got to hit them with the antibiotics again. And there's a problem with that. The problem with that is, and I'm not saying that antibiotics are never needed. Don't take this as that. What I am saying is antibiotics kill normal flora as well as bad flora. And you have to have normal bugs in your gut to produce enzymes. And these normal bugs in your gut also kill bad bacteria and viri. So you need to have these things, and every time that you take an antibiotic, you're killing some of them. So you see that come up. If it comes up in 15 minutes, rock and roll. Goes along, sodium bicarb challenge, bang, drops down again, and we want to see it come back in that 15 to 20 minutes. Typically you do 3 challenges, and if all 3 challenges follow the same path, same route, same time, you're great. If you do not reacidify, that's me, then we can start to add betaine hydrochloride, because we can actually tell how much betaine you have to use with your meals to break it down. After you do that, then we have to, or if you're hyper, we've had several patients come in that are hyper. And
we were surprised by it because we figured they were going to be hypo.
Yeah, and all of them come in with nutritional deficiencies, because when you do a hair analysis test on these people, across the board, all their micronutrients are low. And when their micronutrients are low like that, I typically start to tend to look at their hypo, because you don't have enough hydrochloric acid, you can't break down your minerals, you can't break down your vitamins, you can't absorb them, so you're not going to get them. In the case of the patients that we've had that are hyper, they come back and they have no micronutrient profile, that everything is low, and what happens is the food drops in and it's so acidic it just gets burnt up. That's an oversimplification, but it's a good one, a good analogy. You have to think that transit time out of the stomach, you have to keep things between 4.5 and 5 pH, then the sphincter opens, it allows the contents to dump. And if your stomach is hot, that doesn't happen because it wants to hold it there. So, once again, that's why a functional test is important. A functional test is the only thing that tells you this information. So, what causes hypochlorhydra. I've been hogging the spotlight. You're the pretty one. And the smart one. Pretty and smart.
That's not true. What causes it? Well, lots of things can cause it.
Throw one at me. Yeah, that's a biggie. Stress is very large. So if you have devices,
This is my cool Christmas present. I'm loving this.
If
It's
you-
learning every day. Learn something different every day.
so if you have one of the latest generation smartwatches, or you have a device called an Aura Ring,
Which this is awesome and mine died. So we're working on it.
yeah. Hey, if you're from Aura, we sent you an email, you sent us one back, we sent you one back, we need another one. We
Best
don't
part
know
about
what to
this
do.
is this is waterproof. You can wear it all the time.
So what this measures though, or one of the things that it measures, is heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is a measure of stress. So it's very important to have a large heart rate variability. If you have a large variability, this gives you, I call it, it gives you slack. It gives you the ability to move left and right. But large heart rate variability is very, very good for you. All right. So, what causes hypochlorhydria?
Stop taking your acid blockers.
Oh, this is a study on acid blockers,
Please
and
stop
I'm going to
taking
read
the acid blockers.
after you correct the problem. So, what causes it? High stress is correct. Aging. If you're over the age of 25, you start to lose function. I'm 50, and so I have to watch this. And lots of area under the curve, and I used to drink alcohol, and I would eat lots of sugary snacks and bad food because I could, and I didn't know any better. So aging, stomach surgery, medications, high sugar intake, and that and stress for Americans is huge. So praying the rosary, meditating, going for a walk, stretching, being out in nature, being with good friends who make you laugh, that all reduces stress.
A dog, get a dog.
Dogs are cool, cats are cool, birds are cool, pets are cool. They also help your microbiome. So,
Get 2 dogs. 3.
so real thing, and this is what happens.
We're back, I think.
Hey, there we are. And this is what happens when you let nerds like me who've played video games in the past discover new things about the gut, because it looks like a Sonic the Hedgehog character, and it actually got named the Sonic Hedgehog. She would never do that. Do you even know who Sonic the Hedgehog is?
No. I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, it's just a thing. Let's go there, see what happens. Okay, so just so you know, what ends up happening is the gut houses 70% of all your immune system. It also is the thing that houses what produces your neurotransmitters. So you hear a lot of stuff about the gut-brain connection. You hear a lot of stuff about the axis, the HPA axis. This is all the gut and the brain talking to each other, typically through the vagus nerve. IBS, Crohn's disease, these types of things are things you can see doing a Heidelberg because it's off. When you make corrections to the hydrochloric acid, you start to see things like Crohn's disease clearing up. And there's multiple studies, and this is just not anecdotal evidence, showing that happens.
Yeah, and I'm usually the guinea pig.
Other things, as people know and know me, other things that are important to me are dementia, Alzheimer's, and cancers. Those are all very important. Those come from sugars and stuff like that. And if your gut is off, you don't metabolize those well, and you don't take care of those things well. So when they do a DNA test on you, do you know what percentage of your, and it varies according to resource, but how much of you is bacterial DNA and how much of you is human DNA?
You're mostly bacteria.
You're mostly bacterial DNA. I've seen as high as 90 and as low as 50. So at best, you're 50-50 bacterial to human DNA, and at kind of worst, or whatever else you want to say, worst. Sorry, my mom's rolling over in her grave. English teacher. You're 90-10. 90% bacterial DNA, 10% human DNA. Regardless of all that, pretty much we are just this little frontal lobe. That's us. You take out that, you do a frontal lobotomy, and you cease to exist. With that, let's go into the study. And I have talked lots. What have I missed, and what do you want to add?
Well, you did the Heidelberg, supplements, change in diet, change in routine. Did you talk about diet?
No, not really. I said it affects.
It does affect. That you make the changes in your diet, your supplements, and what else?
Well, here's where we're going to go into a little bit of a rant. So, I am not a big fan.
Are you going to hit the COVID?
I will. I am not a big fan of the standard American diet. And so when you were talking about the standard American diet, let's say this is it, and you compare a vegan diet to the standard American diet, it's better. Vegetarian diet to the standard American diet. The vegan and vegetarian diets are better than the standard American diet. The paleo, carnivore, keto diets are all better than the standard American diet. Why are we, as a society, so bent on keeping the standard American diet even around? I am sure that if we asked McDonald's and Burger King and those places to actually serve real food, vote with our dollars, this would happen. It would change. It would have to, because they exist to serve us. And so it takes demand to ask for that. Now, I am still one that says you are better off for you and your family to stay home and cook. Have some fun with your kids. If you don't know how to cook, learn to cook with them. Show them that it's okay to not know everything, and it's okay to make mistakes. Very few of my mistakes in the kitchen have been inedible. I'm saying very few.
You can't mess an Instapot up.
True. So, do not think that chasing the almighty dollar. Don't think that you need the next BMW, Mercedes, purse, whatever.
I'm just chasing the next dog.
Those are just things, and they create stress, which creates problems. So let's talk about immunoresilience for just a second. And the standard American diet eliminates immunoresilience, and we'll go through this because the standard American diet causes a problem because it has so much refined sugar, so much crappy oils, or so many crappy oils. It's devoid of nutrition. All of these things cause problems, and it's one of the number one causes for acid reflux, which causes us to take PPIs. And this is where we're going to talk. I'm not an alarmist. I don't believe in scaring people to do what I want them to do. This is not my research. This is a literature review, and who did the research will come out of this. And I will try to explain things that I think need to be explained. I'm not trying to insult anybody's intelligence. So, research roundup: COVID-19 immunity, stomach acid susceptibility, and more. Every week there are numerous scientific studies published. Here's a look at some of the more interesting ones. This was done July 10th, kind of ironic, that's my mother's birthday. So this is a little older, and it's a little older research, and there is newer research, but it still tends to vet out the same so far. COVID-19 immunity might not be possible. The Spanish government partnered with some of the country's leading epidemiologists to determine what percentage of the population had developed antibodies, and that's what we're all wanting, have developed antibodies that could provide immunity against the SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. They found that only 5% of people tested across the country maintained antibodies to the virus, and that 14% of the people who tested positive for the coronavirus antibodies in the first round of testing did not continue to have antibodies in follow-up tests performed several weeks later. So what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
Well, you're not becoming resistant.
You're
or
not
even helping yourself.
You're not creating the memory B cells.
Yeah.
So we don't seem to be creating memory B cells to this, kind of like we don't create memory B cells to the flu. You know, why do people get the flu every year? And once again, I'm not saying this is the flu, and I'm not saying that it's not more dangerous than the flu. To people who have comorbidities, and I have comorbidities,
Yeah,
I'm not playing it off.
They're both just as bad.
Yep.
To the right people.
Yep. The research was published in the Journal of the Lancet. That's a pretty important research paper, actually. The studies chose 35,883 households and invited them to participate. From April 27th to May 11th, 2020, 61,075 people answered a questionnaire. I do not like questionnaires. They are a very inaccurate assay. So, tell me what you ate a week ago. But right now, this is the best they had, and this is where you start, because you have to start somewhere. So, from April 27th to May 11th, 2020, 61,075 people answered the questionnaire on a history of symptoms compatible with COVID-19 and risk factors. They received point-of-care antibody test, and if they agreed, also donated a blood sample for a chemoluminescent microparticle immunoassay. What is the point of care? That's the swab, probably, right? Because they do a point of care right there because they didn't draw blood.
Well, depending on, there's different types of tests, so they can do the nasal swab, and then they can do a spit test.
So they got either the nasal swab or the spit test. And then if they said, sure, go ahead, then they pulled a blood sample, which is a serum sample, and did an assay on it. And so the chemoluminescent microparticle immunoassay is just a more advanced or upgraded portion of the ELISA test. So they found a seroprevalence. So that seroprevalence is the number of people in a population. So we're looking at this 61,000 people that were examined in a population who test positive for a specific disease based on the serum. Now, when we look at that, out of the 35,883 households, they found a seroprevalence of 5% in the point of care test. So the swab, the spit, 5%, that equals 1,794 for the point of care. In the immunoassay, they found a 4.6, which is 1,651. They found a geographical variability with a higher prevalence around Madrid and lower coastal areas. So for some reason, people who were in the lower coastal areas and Madrid was a hot spot, they found that they were more susceptible to the COVID virus. Why is that? Is that because at a higher elevation, the red blood cells are more prevalent, people's lungs work a little harder, they seem to be a little stronger. That's why triathletes and endurance athletes train at a high elevation and race at a lower elevation. They concluded that the majority of the Spanish population was seronegative to SARS-CoV-2 infection, even in hotspot areas. Most, they didn't give us a number, PCR confirmed cases had detectable antibodies, but a significant percentage of people with symptoms compatible with COVID-19 did not have the PCR test, and at least a third of infections diagnosed by serological testing were asymptomatic. Immunity, this is in quotes, immunity can be incomplete. It can be transitory or it can last for just a short time and then disappear, said Raquel Yadi, the director. So this is saying that you want your body to be immunoresilient. You want the health and you want to be as healthy as you can. And so, once again, I hammer on the standard American diet, get away from it because it does not add anything to the body. Of Spain's Carlos III Health Institute, which helped run the study. Ian Jones, a professor of virology at the University of Reading, said no symptoms suggest a mild infection, which never really gets the immune system going well enough to generate an immunological memory. Anyone, that's the memory B cell that they're talking about. Anyone who tests positive to an antibody test should not assume they are protected. They may be, but it's not clear. Marion Pullen, the lead author of the study, told CNN some experts have computed that around 60% of seroprevalence might mean herd immunity, but we're very far from achieving that number, and we're still very far from achieving that number. Certain types of indigestion medications appear to increase the risk of COVID-19 infection. Researchers at Cedars-Sinai, does that sound familiar? And the University of Michigan, these are tests done in the United States, and an observational study found that patients who used proton pump inhibitors. So this is an observational study.
Tell them what those are. Those are your Pepsid. Those are your Alka-Seltzers. Those are your, I'm trying to think of it, Protonics.
The purple pill. That's
and Nexium. Acid reflux, heartburn medications. Those are all lumped into that.
So, patients who use proton pump inhibitors, a type of stomach acid treatment, increase the likelihood of COVID-19 infection. People taking PPIs twice daily have higher likelihood of positive tests for COVID-19 than those using PPIs up to once a day. People taking the less potent H2 RAS are not at an increased risk. What is that? I'm not sure what that one is.
What is it?
The H2, it's another inhibitor. It's an H2 inhibitor, H2 RAS.
I don't know what a name would be.
Well,
I
here,
can find it.
go here and ask Dr. Google. I don't get to play with those things, so I don't really know what they are. We have developed this hypothesis at the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic when we started to see a high incidence of GI symptoms and learned that the virus sheds into saliva and thus can be swallowed into the stomach, said Christopher V. Alamario of Cedars-Sinai. We have now tested the hypothesis in a rigorous study of more than 50,000 Americans and found it to bear out, albeit in an observational study.
So your H2 receptor blockers, is that what you were asking?
Yes.
So that'd be your Pepsid AC, generic famotidine, Tagamet, cimetidine, nizatidine. As a nurse, I've been a nurse for 12 years. I've never heard of those two. But the Pepsid AC, the Tagment HB.
So people who were taking those H2 receptor inhibitors don't seem to be at a higher risk. Just the proton pump inhibitors.
Get you those names.
PPIs increase the risk of enteric infections, which they believe is related to PPI-induced hypochlorhydria, a low gastric acid level. Of the 53,130 participants, 3,386 reported a positive COVID-19 test. In regression analysis, people using PPIs up to once a day or twice a day had increased likelihood of reporting a positive COVID-19 test compared to those not taking PPIs.
And do you know your PPIs?
Yes.
Those are your omeprazole, Prilosec over the counter, Prevacid, Protonix, Pantoprazole, I don't know how to say these, Aspibex, Nexium, and Dexilant. Of course, you got the generic names that are about this small. So those are the more
PPI.
common names, and those are your PPI inhibitors, and those are the ones that put you at greater risk.
Yes, so you've got to know the difference. The reason we have acid in our stomach, namely to kill pathogens. That's why the hydrochloric acid is required. When you have GERD or acid reflux, there's a reason. This stuff just doesn't happen. And to be given a diagnosis of acid reflux is not actually a diagnosis. That is describing the symptom. There is a reason you have acid reflux, and it is not because the acid is refluxing. Your body knows what it's doing, and will do it well until we, this little bit here, screw it up. And we do a fabulous job of that. The reason we have acid in our stomach, namely to kill pathogens before they enter the digestive tract, said Brennan M.R. Spiegel of Cedars-Sinai. Coronaviruses are easily destroyed at the gastric pH of less than 3. So typically, when we look at gastrograms using the Heidelberg, your pH should be between 0.5 and 1. That's where we generally are. We have seen people who do not start there, but survive at a more neutral pH, including the range created by drugs like omeprazole and esomeprazole. We found a strong independent effect of using PPIs on the risk of COVID-19, including a dose-response relationship with nearly a 4-fold increase risk for twice daily dosing. We found no relationship with the less powerful H2 RAS, such as famotidine and
Famotidine.
what's the other one? Cimetidine and
Where do you see that?
what's that one?
Famotidine.
And
Cimetidine.
Cimetidine. So that's why it's very, very important.
And Famotidine is Pepsid. That's what everybody knows it by.
And so that's why it's important to take your body, and we all start somewhere. I used to be 270 pounds. I was very ill, and it's a path to learn how to be healthy. And it's a path to learn what you can and can't eat. I can't say that, hey, this diet is the diet for you. It's not. It's going through and looking at what you're eating and figuring it out. But if you don't have the function to begin with, if you've done enough damage to yourself that the gastric tract is not working, you have to give it a little help until it can recuperate. And then once it recuperates, what I start at 4 beta hydrochloric acids twice, so I would take 8 per meal, and now I just take 1 to 2 in the middle of a meal. If it's a heavy protein meal, I take 2. If we're having greens with a little bit of protein on the side, 1. But those are the things, and that's where you just learn. You learn yourself and what you need to do. If she ever took 2, you get heartburn.
I can't take 2 anymore.
So, and that's just where the gut's healing, and that's what it does. I guess with that all being said,
Well, I do want to add that there's lots of people that take those PPIs that they do need them sometimes because they have ulcers. But the thing about that is you can heal those things and then get off of them. But you have to, work with your doctor, work with your diet, work with the nutritionist, do something.
Why do you have the ulcer? Most likely H. pylori. You can test for that. If H. pylori is the issue, the acid is not the problem. The bacteria is the problem.
But we can start by testing the acid, and if, depending on if you fall within that normal range, or we figure out if you're hyper or hypo, and then we put you on a regimen to help, and it doesn't, we can test you for something different. Both of those things we can do in the office.
Well, not only that, but when we've seen with some patients, when we retrieve the pill, you can see blood on the string. You can see mucus on the string. And there you immediately have to test for something else. Typically you test for H. pylori. And that allows us to look at that and say, okay, you have an H. pylori infection. Here are your options for treatment. You can go with antibiotics, or you can go with, let's modify the diet, let's use biocidin or something of that nature, let's attack it differently. I typically tend to go this way, but I'm the weird chiropractic functional medicine guy.
Well, I don't know, the biocidin is great. Just because, Gracie, our daughter, she was on.
Oh, I wasn't saying that for
6 or
you.
7. I know, but it does have. It works because she's been able to come off of most all of her prescription drugs. That's with a modification of diet, exercise, and supplements.
So, to help people that want to know, what do you think we should do to help them out? What do you want to do?
Well, we have this awesome system, and we'd like to share, and we'd like to help you go into your new year with better health. So in order to do that, you kind of need to know where your baseline is. And we have this Heidelberg, and the test usually runs $550, and we thought we would offer it to our friends that come in and see us the month of January for $350. But you need to
She's the money person.
you need to call, schedule, and we'll pay for that test when you schedule, and then we will order your capsule. So you can let your friends and family know. Again, we're the only clinic in Indiana that has that system. We think it's great. We've both done it on each other, and we've had several patients, and we've had really good results. And we would like to share it with you. So give us a call. Tina will schedule that appointment for you. That number is 812-346-1757.
Yep.
We will schedule that test. So we've had several patients that test has only taken about 30 minutes start to finish. So we're going to guesstimate 30 minutes to an hour and a half if we do the betadine test.
The hour and a half.
You can, I would say 30 minutes to 2 hours. And we can give you more information. If you're interested, send us your information that we can contact you, and we'd be more than happy to send you some information on that system. We think it's great. At least it gives you a baseline so you can tweak your diet, tweak your supplements, tweak your lifestyle.
Well, the immunoassay, or just the immunoresilience, just bringing your hydrochloric acid to the point that's why the functional test is important. Because if you do not re-acidify, that's when the bacteria and the viri get through. So you do not want to just take the sodium bicarbonate, hey, I'm good. I think you take sodium bicarbonate, you drink it.
Well, you can't kill the pathogens, and you also can't digest your food properly, which means you can't get your nutrients. So you can take all the vitamins you want to, but unless you're going to absorb them, they're not really going anywhere but out.
Yep. So you got to reacidify, and you got to know that you reacidify. And if you don't reacidify, then you need to take the things that help your body recover. And with that being said,
We'd like to say Happy New Year.
oh yeah, be safe
Have
out there
a
tonight.
very blessed and safe New Year. We would love to see you, to help you, whether it be chiropractic or functional medicine. But send us your contact information if you have any questions or concerns, and share it with your friends and family.
Just for one last time, repeat the offer.
The Heidelberg test, we usually offer that at $550 through the month of January. If you call and schedule, it'll be $350, and you'll need to pay for that at the time of your appointment. And then we will get your capsule ordered for you. But we look forward to seeing you.
Thank you. Have a great New Year.
And we'll see you next week.
See you then. Finish.